Okay, so let's try to understand what it is that a cash buyer is going to try to offer you. Most of them have very specific formulas that they use, and they all know what their bottom line is that they're willing to go to for themselves because their job is to make a profit, right? And they got to make sure that they factor those things in. So if we take a look at some just general rules, some guidelines that they follow, often it is that they're going to offer you a percentage of what they call the ARV. So ARV, and that's after rehab value, right? So if the house was in tip top shape, right, it's in the best shape, what is that value? And so let's call it $1 million. Okay. And if it's $1 million, a lot of investors, they'll use, depending on how hot the market is, right? They'll use a basic formula. One of the term or numbers that I hear most frequently is, using 70% of ARV to start with. Okay. Sometimes they'll go 60, 55, 50% of the ARV as far as a starting point goes. And so that's tough. Now, on the other end, in a really hot market, in a hot investor market, they're going to go up to 85% ARV. So there's a whole big range, but for our purposes, we're just going to use 70% of ARV. So what that does is that now puts your house, or what they're probably going to offer you, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000 just right out of the gates, because they figure, it being a numbers game, if they offer enough people 70% of ARV, they're going to come across that person who is desperate enough to say, sure, fine, just give it to me and let's go. Let's let this be over, right? But that's not going to be you, because you're here watching this stuff here. So, and then what they're going to do is they're going to factor in repairs a lot of times. So not only are they now reducing it 30%, because they're going, the house is in bad shape, 30%. What you have to understand is that 30%, oftentimes, that's their margin. That's their profit that they're after. They're trying to get a 30% profit. Can you imagine that somebody buys your house for 30% below tip-top shape, and then they put $300,000 in their pocket? Does that sound right to you? It's a little bit off, right? In my opinion, anyway. So repairs. So then now they go, well, gosh, it's $150,000 in repairs. So then, so now we're talking $550,000 is what they might end up with. And folks, these people are good at what they do. They're trained. They study, they practice sales techniques and ways to get you to yourself start to believe that, oh yeah, I guess that probably is the best we're going to get. It's crazy. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. There was a house, it was not far from here. A family member called us up. They said, hey, dad passed away. They have a friend who is the trustee, so they had somebody that they really liked, that they wanted to manage everything. The ARV on the property was probably at the point in time about 1.2, 1.3 million. They called an ad. Well, the guy showed up, and what did he offer him? He offered him $550,000. Okay, so that's somewhere right out of the gates. You're at 40% of the value of the property, and they convinced this trustee who lived in the neighborhood, so he knows what the values are. He knows the area, but this guy was able to convince him that, man, for this property, $550,000, that's about the best you're going to get. Okay, well, in the end, when somebody called us and told him, wait, talk to Anthony. He talked to us. We showed him what to do. He ended up with $837,000 for a cash offer instead. So it's cash offer still. Had they taken my other advice for this particular property, because it really wasn't in that bad a shape, and put it on the MLS, then they probably would have made close to $1 million. But I understand different people have different levels of urgency and whatnot. So In any case, this is probably how they're going to figure out what your offers are. I'll tell you one other story, or this investor in one of the groups that I follow was telling a story. It's like, yeah, he goes, you know what, dude, I totally scored because I got this house for $50,000 less. Do you know how he got the house for $50,000 less? He got the house for $50,000 less because he did her dishes. This is an older woman, lived on her own. She was probably, fairly lonely. And this nice guy shows up and is friendly. Now, she had a price set in mind. He said this. She was stuck on her price. But after doing the dishes for her, she said, fine, I'll sell it to you at your price, $50,000 less. That money should have went in her pocket. I'm sorry, but it should have went into her pocket. So understanding how they kind of come up with those numbers is going to help you so that you can go, oh, okay, I can be a little bit more aggressive and trying, instead of doing, 70%, I understand they got to make a profit. But what if they offered you 90% of ARV, right? So let's call that 90% of ARV, which is $900,000. And sure, minus the repairs. Okay, $750, right? So at least you're walking out of there with $200,000 more than you are in this situation, because now they're going to make $100,000 when they turn around and they sell the property. Okay, fine. But don't fall for that super low pricing that they're going to start out with and convince you that that's what you need to take.